Employers are being warned to move carefully if they suspect foul play regarding employees' sick notes. This comes after a recent judgment by the Labour Appeal Court compelled retail giant Woolworths to reinstate an employee whose contract it terminated 6 years ago. Let's now take a look at legal standards that should be applied when employers check with the integrity of a worker's sick note. I'm joined by legal expert Zinqedile Tiya. Zinqedile, thank you so much for your time and for joining us this evening. Now, a recent decision by the Labour Appeal Court warns employers that they shouldn't dismiss an employee simply based on the suspicion of whether or not a sick note is legitimate. What does this mean for employees? Do you think that employers have abused that suspicion with regards to whether or not a sick note is legit?
Thank you very much, Katlego. Let me first greet you and the viewers at home. This has been a thorny issue on the labor law because at times the employees will be sick genuinely, at times not genuinely, and the employer at times will want to investigate and be fed up, if I may say, because of these perpetual sick notes that come from that particular employee. Then now the law, as you have alluded to the recent Labour Appeal Court decision against Woolworths, that the employers must come and bring a formidable and well-accepted evidence that they may then reject that particular sick note, but not just willy-nilly reject it without making a proper investigation and bringing a proper evidence before the court of law.
Now, in this particular case with Woolworths, I mean, the employee was charged with misconduct for breaching company policies and procedures to justify them not being at work. This case then went on to the CCMA, where the commissioner found her dismissal to be substantively unfair. So at what point, and in Woolworths' case, their argument was that the medical practitioner was not legit, so to speak. Whose responsibility is it in order to ensure that where you get that medical certificate, the practitioner is qualified and registered?
Yeah, thank you very much. Remember, with the law, we say he who alleges must prove. And then in this instance, it's Woolworths who alleges that there was a suspicion about that particular medical practitioner. And then it is then their duty, it's them who have an onus and a burden of proof to prove that indeed that particular medical practitioner was not a proper doctor who is accepted according to the South African standards in terms of the HPCSA policy. So it's the employer who bears the onus to prove if he is suspicious about the doctor. When I go to a doctor, if I say about saying that there's a general practitioner and I feel headache or whatsoever, I simply go there and get injection. I'm not an expert myself and therefore cannot know if he's lying or not unless investigated, of course.
So what makes for a legitimate sick note?
For a legitimate sick note, yes, indeed. Remember, when I go to a doctor, the doctor will simply tell what is it that I'm sick of, and what type of treatment that she gives me. Maybe he will even specify that it causes drowsiness and so forth and puts the stamp and sign. So with me as a layperson, if I see there's a letterhead, there's a stamp, there's a signature, to me that means it's legit. Then if my employer is not happy with it, it's them who has an onus of proof to investigate it.
So now, in the instance that an employer does find that the sick note is fake, what action can be taken within the confines of the law against the employee? Like you said earlier on, especially if an employee is constantly bringing in sick notes to the cost of the company, of course. What then can be done by the employer?
The employer then may subject the employee to disciplinary proceedings for misleading the company, obviously, and you remember that is also tantamount to absence without leave because the document is fraudulent, like what happened in the case of Woolworths. That was the suspicion that the medical practice itself was dubious, and then everything that came from that particular doctor was not trusted, and that is why they decided to dismiss that that employee. And understanding that, obviously, when you speak of the law of evidence, usually the sick notes are regarded as hearsay evidence, although they may come from an expert. So in that instance, where the employer finds the information investigated and come up with findings that it was indeed a fake document, then the employee will be subjected to DC, and for that particular reason, that is tantamount to a dismissal.